Welcome to Dove and Dragons Author Talk Radio, and I'm your host, M.l.Ruscsak. I'm here with guest Jill Vanderwood. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, I pronounced your last name correct today, correct?
Vanderwood, yes.
Okay, great. And you have a teen book out about gun safety. You want to tell us a little bit about that today?
Okay, I wrote this book in a choose-your-own-adventure type book, and it's a fiction book, and it's really realistic, like when a kid finds a gun, and then they have to make a choice what to do. And in this book, it's kind of graphic because kids are actually getting hurt because of the choices they're making. And I think it's kind of unique because I don't think most people write a book in that manner, but I wanted to really bring home what could really happen with a gun.
Did you write this because of this, what's going on with the kids today, or is there a more personal reason that you wrote this book?
I wrote it because I was hearing about all the school shootings, and then the kids from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School were getting up in the media and telling them that we need more gun regulations. And I thought that maybe if kids could feel in their hearts what it felt like if something dangerous happened to them, they might think about, this is not what I want to be involved in.
Well, that's a very good point. You bring up that the students were calling out for more gun regulations. What safety locks and better training on how to keep guns away from the children be just as effective as just kids not picking up the firearm?
There are laws for keeping guns away from children, and and for parents to lock up their guns, but it's only in about 14 states. A lot of the states do not have this regulation at all. And so a lot of times when some child gets a hold of a gun and gets hurt, in some states they'll just say that it was an accidental shooting and they won't blame the parents at all. And then other states, California is the most strict with the gun laws, and the parent can be held liable. And in some cases, parents go to jail if their children get shot with a gun that they owned.
I did not know that about California. But then again, I don't know a lot about different states and gun laws either. Other than gun safety, you have other books that you have written for children. I mean, this is the gun safety one is the most serious, I'm assuming. I haven't read through all your books yet. Would you like to touch base on a few of those?
Well, I have a book about drugs, and which we did interviews with a lot of different people who had family members who were involved with drugs and had been involved with drugs themselves and telling the dangers of each drug. And then we have a book about Erase the Problem of Bullying, and this book is about bullying from different points of view, and it's also interviews with people who have been bullied, people who were bullies, and then each person gave some advice to kids who are suffering with bullying.
That actually, both of those really touch close to home because I have family members that are involved in drugs, have tried to get away from it for years and keep slipping back. And then also I was a victim of bullying growing up. So both of those ones really hit home to me. But
they did with me too. So
I'm so glad that it's coming out now. It's no more a taboo about speaking about it. It's more a cultural awakening, getting some of these adult problems to the hands of children to teach them to go a different route.
That's right. And I also suffered with bullying and have family members who have done drugs and alcohol. And I had a brother who had committed suicide with a gun. So that kind of hit my heart too.
Well, I profusely sorry about your brother. I understand the sorrow for losing someone that's close to you, especially when it's taken by their own hands or in a violent way.
Yes, that's true. It's a lot different than if they just died. Yeah.
Yeah. No one understands the difference between a death of someone that's been sick and or elderly and just passes versus someone that's taken all too soon.
That's the truth. And too many people are suffering because of gun regulations, lax gun regulations, and people getting guns into the hands of children. I don't care who has guns, and I think they have the right to have guns, but I think they should keep them away from children.
Right. It's not just, I know my state. I know the city I grew up in. It's not just the law-abiding people that have the guns. It's the black market guns where the children can actually purchase them themselves, which needs to be really cracked down upon because we have this illegal market and so many lives are being lost because of the legal activity from gun sales.
That's true, but the kids that are getting guns and going to school, I would say most of them are getting them from family members.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
family members.
Yes, that's what we're hearing in the media with those instances. But we're not hearing is the gang violence and stuff also being contributed by firearms. Unfortunately,
yes.
I think Chicago. I'm talking more for Chicago, Detroit. Just in the news, they had 23 different families suffering from their children being gunned down by illegal firearms. It's not just the legal ones being held by family. It's the ones that we have on the black market. So it's
That's
a double.
Horrible.
It's a double-edged sword at this point. I'm all for the Second Amendment, but at the same time, it needs to be responsible.
That's true. You're right.
And I think your book really points to being responsible gun owners, especially when you have children that are very influential and they may be a victim of bullying. We don't always know what our kids are going through in school.
And in the book, I give the example that the boy, one of the characters has been bullied at school. So when he shows the gun to his friends, one of them suggests that he takes the gun to school to deal with bullies. And, the bullying is a terrible problem, and you're not thinking clearly sometimes when you're being treated like that.
Right. If you're being put down every day by the same group of people, same person, same community of people, your mind no longer thinks as it would if you're being brought up in a happy, healthy environment. So you lash out, you do stupid stuff, and then you find a firearm, and we see about this in the news all too often anymore, and terrible things happen. And your book points to that perfectly.
It also tells, some of the choices are what somebody can tell the counselor that the person's being bullied and end this before it gets any worse. But in some situations, they don't get to the person in time, and something actually happens.
Exactly. It's very what-if scenarios, but at the same time, part of the choices are yours to make, and part of them you're reacting to the choices of someone else.
That's right. And it's telling, I wanted kids to go through the whole scenario so that they know, hey, if I do this, this might happen. And then it also tells the consequence, like people getting arrested and the dad actually got shot in one of the scenarios, and he owned the gun. So in the hospital, he could have been charged with this crime even though he was shot in some states.
Mhm. It, like I said, we act as a bullied person one way. We react
Mhm.
to our emotions. It's when we learn how to control our emotions we can then change the situation. But at the same time, we have to make the choice that is a positive choice and not a negative gut reaction, especially when we're dealing with bullies, when we're dealing with negative environments, regardless if we're doing things with firearms. We have to react with a positive information, not on a negative gut reaction.
That's right.
I do
And
a
in
lot
my
of.
book, I also made it so that the main character could be a boy or a girl, and the friends
Mhm.
are both boys and girls, so that both boys and girls could see the situation from their own point of view.
I think that's a wonderful thing. We hear most of the school shootings that we've heard about have been male shooters, unfortunately, or fortunately. I don't know how you would like to word that. We haven't heard anything about a female coming across a firearm like this. But at the same time, boys have that testosterone, and when they're bullied and pushed to that point, in our society is telling us that they're more prone to violence. That's
Yes.
what society says.
In one of my scenarios, they're shooting in the backyard at a target, and
Mm-hmm.
the main character, which could be a boy or a girl, the reader, shoots, and one bullet goes into the target, and the next one, they don't know where it went. And it turns out that that bullet went through a window in a house beyond the yard. And then a mother comes out with a child and says that somebody was shooting at their child while the child was sleeping and almost hit the child. And so they go through all the emotions of, oh, now I'm the monster that comes and scares little kids while they're sleeping, and then they have to decide whether to turn themselves into the police or not. And it goes through that because the person didn't mean to shoot, but it was a dangerous situation that they put a child into.
Right. We hear about accidental shootings, as society calls them. When we hear about things like this, or we hear about people shooting in the air thinking the bullet's just going to go down, well, that doesn't always just happen, go up and come right back down. It can go anywhere. The wind can carry it, whatever. The trajectory can go astray. It doesn't matter. You're still shooting a firearm. You don't know where it's going unless you aim it at what you pointed at. At the same time, you can miss.
That's true. Or there was a shooting at a school where a young girl, she was 12, she took her backpack to school with a gun in it, and the gun went off. And it shot at a desk and different things. It ricocheted. It was only really one bullet, but it injured about 4 people, just that one bullet.
And that's stuff that we don't really think about that we should. Well, no, I shouldn't say we don't think about. Children don't think about. Adults, responsible people that have training think about this. People that don't have training don't think about this. Let's
true.
clarify that a little bit. And there's a lot of gun courses, gun safety courses out there that you can get training to understand.
And it's okay for a kid to be shooting with their parent with supervision.
Yes.
That's legal, but not in a dangerous, not in their own backyard or in the neighborhood. So
no,
there was a boy. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
There was
No, go
a
ahead.
article that I found on the internet that a boy was shooting around in the bedroom, shooting the little stuffed animals in his sister's bedroom, and the sister was in the room. Or somebody was taking a gun outside, and they were shooting because their team won, won the Super Bowl or something. And those type of things are not legal for anybody. And then taking a gun to school, even having it on the school property, is a fine in itself. And the people that took guns to school and they were in their locker, they're still considered to be in possession of a firearm. And they still could be arrested, even if they never shot anybody or didn't do anything with the gun. Just having it on the school property, and that's in every state.
Yes. Back in the 60s, I know this from my mom telling us, there used to be gun safety classes taught in school by local police officers. School shootings have gone up since they took those out of schools. We don't have that safety training being taught to our children, what to do if they find a firearm, what not to do with a firearm.
That's kind of why I wrote a book about it. Yes,
exactly.
Because it isn't taught.
We need this taught in schools. It's basic. It used to be taught. And a lot of things that used to be taught need to be brought back, because we have a society that we have kids that play these violent video games. Well, they associate real life to these violent video games. And they assume that shooting a person is the same thing as shooting a person in a game. And it's not.
Now, the Parkland shooter. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's more important today to teach our kids what not to do with guns, as well as gun safety, because of the culture of the games and sometimes the movies.
That's true. I was going to say the Parkland shooter, they interviewed his brother, and they played those violent video games together. And he would hear his brother saying, I really like to take a gun and shoot up a school. And the brother just thought that was part of the game and just kind of ignored the comment, And he said it more than once to his brother. And then he actually did it. And the brother felt so terrible because he had heard his brother saying that, but never imagined that he really meant to do it. And so I'm thinking that almost anybody that's going to shoot has talked to somebody, or somebody has seen something on the internet or something about them. And if the students would just speak up what they know, even if it sounds stupid, don't assume somebody else is going to speak up because you're the one that needs to.
Exactly. And this goes back to not just with gun safety, but we have children committing suicide because they were being bullied. We have other violent crimes being committed by children under the age of 18.